106. Last month, I participated in the Spring Educational and Workshop Series presented by Green Mountain Floral Supply in Burlington, Vermont. It was a Slow Flowers Love Fest, bringing me together with a whole bunch of Slow Flowers members. Owners Tom and Kim Jennings of Green Mountain, Jayson Munn, seminar coordinator, Holly Chapple, who taught floral design and business workshops for 3 days, and today's guest, local Vermont flower farmer Jessie Witscher, co-owner with her partner Gregory Witscher of Understory Farm, all Slow Flowers members. Jessie was invited to share about her flower farm and to discuss growing premium specialty cut flowers to supply Green Mountain and other outlets. We also heard a presentation by farmer-florist Abby Matson of Diddle and Zen, also located in the Burlington area. And I took advantage of a free day to invite both Jessie and Abby to record conversations to share with you. We'll hear from Abby in a few weeks, but today you're in for a treat to learn from Jessie. We'll learn how Jessie and Gregory do the math to calculate profitability for their mostly wholesale-focused operation. Nearly 80% of their flowers include wholesale channels to Green Mountain Floral Supply and to 2 grocery co-ops in their region. If you've always wondered how to make it work, learning from Jessie's insights is a great place to start. Let's jump right in and meet today's guest, Jessie Witscher, and I'll share our sponsor thank yous after the conversation. Welcome back to the Slow Flower Show with Deborah Prinzing, and I'm so excited to be coming to you today from Burlington, Vermont, where I've been participating in some workshops at Green Mountain Floral Supply, including one that I did with my guests yesterday. Hi, Jessie.
Hi, Deborah.
Jessie Witscher is the co-founder of Understory Farm. Is it Understory Flower Farm or just Understory Farm?
Just Understory Farm.
Okay, yeah, because you had origins that weren't flower-based, right?
True.
Jessie presented yesterday a story of her farm, and we had a roundtable discussion. It was great, and I just wanted to welcome you to the podcast and share your story with people.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, so you're in Vermont. It seems like a little bit inhospitable for farming due to the winters, but how does it work for you? What months do you farm? And tell us a little bit about Understory Farm.
We grow about 5 acres of annual crops, field crops, and then we have a couple acres of perennials, and then we have 6 high tunnels that are 30 by 70 feet. So
is that what makes farming here possible?
Yeah, I mean, people farm here without that, but in order for it to be our main livelihood, we both work full-time on the farm.
And we being you and your partner?
Yeah, Gregory and I both.
Okay, great.
So, and now 3 of our high tunnels are minimally heated, meaning we just have one heater in there, which is enough to like take the edge off the shoulder seasons. Mm-hmm. We don't like fully heat them in the winter to produce things midwinter, but we can produce, we're harvesting crops April through the end of November.
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, that's a long period of time. That's like 7 months, right?
Yeah, we're really happy with that. We feel like we can go hard those months and then we get a little bit of a break.
Right. Wow. So when you said the minimally heated, is that for the early bulb crops or cool season annuals? What are you trying to take the edge off and keep just slightly above freezing?
Yeah, we do the early crops like anemone, ranunculus, tulips. We do tulips outside in the field and also in a tunnel. And then also for our fall, we do snapdragons and we do an entire house of heirloom mums, which are cold hardy,
right.
But we can't get enough harvested without that taking that edge off at the end of the season. And then this year we are seeding in the fall to have crops over winter to come on the following spring.
And are those mostly like cool annuals or whatever they're called?
Yeah, like Icelandic poppies, bells of Ireland, snapdragons. Yes.
Wow. Well, you told a really great story yesterday about kind of transitioning from having being meat farmers as well as some vegetable, is that correct?
Yeah.
And then flowers, and then how that all kind of became an aha moment for you that flowers were really your calling. And I'd love to hear that story, and I think it's relevant. A lot of people,
start out thinking flowers will be their secondary crop, and then all of a sudden they're surprised at how much demand there is and how people respond to them, right?
Yeah. When we first started farming, which was actually in Arizona, we grew just specialty greens, and that was our business.
Specialty greens, like for mixed salads, or
like salad mixes, and then we had a cookable greens mix also.
Okay, and who did you sell to more, to the consumer or the
just
restaurants?
A co-op, and then at a farmer's market. It was sort of my project while I was at home with my daughter, and then we decided to move to New England for a better water source. The West is dry.
Yeah. You, just to stop you for a sec, you said that yesterday, and it was a really an interesting reason why someone would relocate. I think that's probably going to happen more with the droughts in the West. So, where you ended up, you could just have a readily available access to water most communities, or did you have to really hunt for land? You were leasing first, right?
Well, at that point, when we moved, we were just getting jobs on a pastured livestock operation. So they did some dairy and raised pigs.
But long term, you were thinking, if we're going to do this for our livelihood, we need water.
True.
Okay.
Yeah. Ironically enough, water has continued to be an issue, just because it's so important. I think,
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about
operation.
that.
But you didn't have to. Where we were living at the time in Arizona, all the fields had to be irrigated continuously, just even grow grass for the animals.
Wow.
So at least that was a change. We moved to a livestock operation where we rotationally grazed, and we just moved fence, and so
that's great. Yeah.
So first we got jobs doing that, and then when we did finally move to Vermont, we found a place where we knew we could lease the land and start our own thing. And at that point we were new to the area, and so we just did a little bit of everything to try to figure out what we could make a living doing.
And that was, you said were you there for 8 years leasing before you bought land?
Yeah.
Okay, so when were you able to buy your own land and really make permanent roots for Understory Farm?
This will actually only be our third season.
Really?
There. So we almost entirely built our business on someone else's land.
Yeah.
Which had its challenges and its benefits.
So. During that period of time when you were leasing, and that was how far outside of Burlington?
That was about an hour and a half away, or about hour and 40 minutes away. So we've moved closer.
You moved closer, but Burlington was sort of the major market even then, or?
Burlington and Rutland.
Okay.
They're the two more populated areas around us.
I thought it was really interesting when you talked about, you were selling pork and you were selling vegetables of some variety, and then you brought the flowers to the farmer's market just to make your stall look pretty.
Yeah.
Because I guess packages of pork is not too sexy, right?
Right. Yeah, and I've always grown flowers, and like I mentioned yesterday, I actually worked with Shanti Reed, just like learning from her basically about flowers. It's something I was always passionate about, and so I always grew. At that point, when I would bring them, it was just like this little home garden section that I had.
But enough
that I could bring them every week, and then they started selling out, and people wanted more, and so the next year we planted more.
Wow. And then when did you actually make that hardcore decision, like, okay, we're just going to go all in with flowers?
Yeah, I think it was 2017, I want to say, we got the grant through Farm Viability.
Yes, let's talk about that a little bit. This is unique to Vermont?
I'm not sure. I think that there are variations of it nationwide.
Okay. But this one is for Vermont farmers.
Yes. And it was such a cool process because, like I mentioned yesterday, at the time we were not keeping good records. It was like we were writing down the money we got from the farm stand box or what we made. We weren't tracking things.
Right.
And we weren't tracking how profitable things were and what our expenses for each thing was. So it helped us, not only did it help us do that, it required that we started doing that, and we had somebody checking on us to make sure we were. We also did market research, and some branding stuff. We got help with that. And through that year process of like doing that, we recognized that the flowers, there was way more profit potential in that. And they were more profitable. We had more control over the aspects going into it than with pork.
Wow.
So it was
And in that
eye-opening.
Yeah, and that program really imposed some discipline on you, but it seems like you brought that discipline now into how you run the farm. I mean, you seem to keep excellent records, and you have a very good sense of, how your pie is divided and where the revenue streams are coming from, and what you want to keep, what you want to grow. Thank goodness.
Yeah, it's been, I don't know how we would have a profitable business if we didn't learn how to do that. And I think also it's important to recognize when we started doing it, it was far from perfect. And over time, we've gotten better at doing it. But starting it at all, even if it's a little messy, is good, worth it.
Yeah, the one thing I'm so bad at record keeping on is mileage, and at the end of the year I just say to my accountant, "Oh, I'm sure like 50% of my driving was for work," and that is so inaccurate. I probably am leaving money on the table, but boy, it's just how do you keep records? Are you writing down every day or once a week, or you have different types of records you keep, like harvest records as well as sales records?
Yeah, we do. We keep all of our records for all of our sales, and then we put them in different categories. And then this year we actually started making a recipe for every mixed bunch we do, and then a harvest record. And so we have what we put in each bouquet each week, which helps with being able to project availability, which is a big deal for being able to increase our wholesale sales, is to know around what we're going to have so people can plan for that if they're booking a wedding.
Well, part of your presentation to the workshop yesterday was very much about building a wholesale channel for your farm. I find it's a little overwhelming for people. They don't know how to crack the code and get into it. How do you do pricing? And it seems like at some point you, maybe with this viability grant, you made an intentional decision to try to build your wholesale business to the scale that it is now, which is a little under 50% of your categories, right?
Total categories, yes.
45.7% wholesale. That was a couple years ago, I think. Yeah. So
it's the biggest. It's the biggest.
Yeah.
And then the other piece that's large is grocery stores, which I think some people would also consider a wholesale of sorts because
they're marking it up. That's true. So you're way over then.
They're both wholesale technically, but we divide them separately.
And you said grocery is it like 35% or something?
Yeah, I think the most current one is like, those two together is about 80%.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because the flower share and the weddings are both pretty small.
Yeah. The wholesale seems to just seems to be a lovely relationship with the Green Mountain wholesale operation, but it probably took a while to figure out how to sell at that level. What were the challenges? Was it about getting the quantities that they could take, or negotiating the pricing? Or I know you've talked about it being a lot of communication.
Yeah, all of those things were challenging. I just grow different crops than what they were even buying at the time.
Which is why you were so appealing to them, right?
Yeah, in some ways appealing, but in other ways, like, they didn't know really what to do with it. Mm-hmm. I think I write my own availability, so people who are buying our product from them are also getting that, and so I'm able to communicate about what we grow directly to the people that are actually buying it from them.
Got it.
And so I think that's been a huge component. The
florists are receiving additional explanation from you.
Right, like I'm not relying on Green Mountain to do my marketing.
Got it.
And I think
that's interesting.
That's been kind of a key component of making it work. And also, I think there's a couple unique things. One, that there's just a demand for that type of flower in Vermont because it's a destination wedding location. So people are coming here to get married, and it just so happens that look often includes more garden, wildflower looking flowers. So we're lucky in that sense that happens to match. I think that's always the case around the nation,
Right. The fact that this is a destination wedding region is also makes it possible for these florists to have their businesses. So everyone's interdependent on making it work. What was the first flower that you took into Green Mountain and said, hey, I'm growing this, do you guys want to sell it? Or was it more of a bucket of variety of mixed choices?
Honestly, the first time I went in there, it was just a van full of buckets. It was the mid-season, I think, and a friend of mine had just said, why don't you go to Green Mountain and talk to Tom? And he buys local stuff, I think, sometimes. So yeah. I did, and he happened to not be there. And the person who was there was not interested. So I left feeling a little discouraged.
Yeah.
But then Jayson actually saw, we had posted a picture of our entire van pretty much full of ranunculus, and he texted it to Tom, and he was like, you need to get a hold of these people. Because he'd, I think, already been mentioning it. And so then somebody from there called me, and I don't remember who, so ranunculus was probably our ticket in.
So we're talking about Tom Jennings, the owner of Green Mountain, who is a past guest of this podcast, actually, and members of Slow Flowers. And he, I think his heart is always been in the right place because he loves farmers, and he loves farmers from all around the world because he's obviously dealing with many regions. Mm-hmm. But part of it was, the challenges of finding a farmer he could have an ongoing relationship with, and who he knew had excellent quality and could be relied upon, because continuity is sort of the secret to your success, that you follow up and do what you say you're going to do, and you communicate if something isn't available.
Absolutely, yeah, that's been huge. And I think it maybe is important to acknowledge that that's part of that relationship piece is why I wanted that part of the business. I wanted to have a business that was built around ongoing relationships, and not just like I work with this couple for this season, or even farmers markets. Those really, they're very fleeting. Like you see them every week, but it's not like it doesn't feel like a deep connection like what you get if you're actually working with someone day in and day out. And I wanted that.
That's wonderful.
And I'm grateful that Tom was willing to, and he, like you said, he wanted to provide local flowers, and there was the demand in the floral community here too.
Right.
I mean, all of this was kind of happening at the same time.
Was this like 5 or 6 years ago, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the Florit was just starting, and so I think the whole aesthetic around design was changing. There's just a lot happening.
Yeah, and you mentioned Jayson, and we have to acknowledge Jayson Munn, who was basically coordinated this whole week of lectures, and as a wedding and event designer as well. And so to have someone like Jayson, who was already a customer of Green Mountain, send those ranunculus photos to the biggest wholesaler in the region, and I say region, I mean like all of New England, not just Vermont, and say, look at these juicy flowers, why don't you have them? I mean, in a friendly way, like that just kind of, everything seemed to click into place.
Right, and I think a big part of it too is me learning how Tom's business works.
Yeah.
Because I really had no idea, and it's much different than running a farm business, and he's more than happy to talk to you about his business and his experience.
He's a great communicator.
Yes, he is. He's great at telling all kinds of stories, but also talking about his business. And he's also very, very smart and has a lot of experience. And so something I recognized early on is that they are maxed with what they're already doing. And they're already doing a lot and providing a lot. So as much as he wants to have local flowers, and as much as there are people who want them, they don't have a lot of time to incorporate them in. So I needed to figure out, like, how do I make myself fit into what they're already doing, so that it's not a lot more work on them.
So what are some of the things that you kind of, I mean, and I think this is such a good point, because you need the customer more than the customer needs you in some cases. So you have to make it like seamless and painless and convenient as possible, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one of the tricks was always having that availability out at the same time, having the delivery day always on the same day.
Got it.
and being flexible. Like when we first started, that day was Wednesday for us to deliver. And after that first season, they're like, look, it would really be much better if you got your stuff here on Tuesday, which means we work on Sunday.
To harvest.
Yeah. And we really didn't love that idea because at the time we were also doing a farmer's market on Saturday. And we're not anymore, yay. But
part of that work-life balance thing, right?
Right, so that was a huge shift. We shifted to Tuesdays. We started selling a ton more product.
Interesting.
And didn't need to do the farmer's market. But I think learning, what works best for them. How does their business work? How do they sell stuff? So they do a cooler tour. Well, they needed our stuff there on Tuesday to have it on the cooler tour in order to sell more of it.
Is the cooler tour posted Wednesday morning?
I think so.
So they're just videotaping all of the cool stuff in the walk-in cooler, and now Understory Farms product is there.
Right, and they have Wednesday morning before I was getting there is when they take flowers over to their other location in Middlesex.
Right.
And so by getting them a day earlier there, that worked.
You're on that truck too.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah. The quantity must have bumped up just for that reason alone.
Definitely. Yeah.
Like right now we're here at the end of March. Have you started bringing things to Green Mountain yet?
No.
And have you started doing grocery yet?
No.
So April is sort of your kickoff month.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad I got you before you're
Yeah,
super
which
busy.
is, I think, if that was already happening, it's very...
You wouldn't be here.
Yeah. It's great to have flowers earlier, but it's also a lot to be doing that harvesting and selling while you're also getting everything started in the spring. It's crunch time.
Before we turned on the recorder, you made some reference to maybe you'll have tulips earlier next year. Is that a factor that you have to figure out? If you produced earlier tulips, would that interrupt your other farm demands like the seeding and the planting, or are you just going to make it work?
No, we would just have less of a break.
Oh, I see. You just start earlier. And those early tulips, would they be in crates or in the high tunnels?
Yeah.
The tulips you're selling now, or that you're planning to harvest now, are they all outdoors?
They're we have an entire tunnel of them, and then we also have a whole planting out in the field.
Wow.
So we'll basically have 3 successions of tulips next year.
Oh, wonderful, because clearly the demand is there.
Yeah.
And the demand for, you talk about grocery plus wholesale is about 80%. Of the remaining 20%, there is a component of direct to consumer in there. And is that your subscription program?
Yeah.
And is it just something you feel like you want to do to give back to, the people who've always bought from you at the farmer's market, or how does that work?
Yeah, a lot of our farmers market customers actually switched to just getting them from the co-ops that we sell to. So
the grocery stores.
Yeah, there's 2 grocery stores. And the flower share we started during COVID, and yes, people just wanted to keep doing it, and I love it because I do write a newsletter and then I'll talk about the different flowers that are in there, and we get a lot of positive feedback directly from that outlet about like, oh, the fly taken to my mom every week, or so yes, I love it for that reason. They're
your neighbors, they're the people you see at the grocery store or at the kids' sports event. So while it's a small piece, it's kind of a personally rewarding piece.
Yeah, it's meaningful.
I love it. And then the weddings are the other portion. And tell me how you structure your wedding business.
At this point, I really only do a wedding if it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun for my husband, and sometimes our daughter helps with that. And if it looks like a good fit, like they want local flowers, just something about it looks fun to us. They're flexible. So I just tell everybody that right up front, that we only use what we grow. We don't promise anything specific. And if they're really flexible and just want local flowers, it's probably a good fit. And if not, then I just direct them to all of the people we sell flowers to. I have a whole link, and there are so many designers out there who are really just passionate about it and do such a great job if somebody wants like something more specific.
Yeah. So roughly how many do you do, 1 a month, or?
We have 6 full service booked for this year.
Okay. Does that feel pretty good?
And that's way less than we ever have.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think last year we had 15. But we also do DIY. And I've gotten really good at having all of the resources up front for that so that people can hopefully do a lot of the planning on their own and just come and pick up the buckets.
Do you have a DIY tab on your website?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'll make sure we feature some of those resources in our show notes. So Jessie, the thing that I was so fascinated with yesterday when you were, you gave a beautiful presentation, just for a whole introduction to the farm, and maybe I'll grab a few slides from that to share in our edited video. But the wholesale idea, I think, scares a lot of flower farmers because they think, wow, I'm going to be having to sell my product for a lower stem price, so I'm eating into my profitability. And you disagreed. You said that wasn't an issue because of you're looking at the bigger picture and how it fits into your full operation, I guess. So can you talk a little bit about how that feels profitable to you to sell at a lower stem price?
Yeah, I think there's a difference. We discovered that there's a difference in the price per stem that we receive versus the profitability of that stem.
Okay.
And so when I'm putting I think a big part came around just asking, what is it we want to do with our time?
Yeah.
And what is it we enjoy doing? And we got into farming to farm. And so the less time I can spend creating and building new relationships or doing a lot of emailing or a lot of planning.
And maybe being
the
off
better.
farm more too, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Like driving all around the state. If I bring it to Green Mountain, they deliver it. They're already going out. So
Yeah.
I just do one drop there and my flowers are going all over. You
Yeah.
know?
And you're not in the van for another full day on a bucket route or something.
Yeah, so so that's one component of it. We have actually a spreadsheet that we use that asks these questions, like how flexible is this account? That's another thing. If something is really, really specific, that actually makes it less profitable for us because it's more stress, and also that's other things we're not selling that are probably in the ground. So having flexibility in the market is another key to profitability. And having something that we can use in multiple sales outlets makes it more profitable. And I think that then there's this scale.
Yeah.
Right. So if we had only a small space, we have to make more per stem for it to be profitable. You have to.
Yeah.
But when we can grow and sell more quantities, that actually becomes more profitable because then we can invest in the equipment that makes it easier for us to produce it.
And you have been investing in equipment. You teased people yesterday with some of these amazing attachments that you can build rows and you can spread the mulch or whatever. And I mean, I was so impressed with all of that.
Yeah, we have a mulch layer that does the fertilizer, the drip, the bed shaping, and then we have a water wheel transplanter now. So
yeah, that was cool. It's called a water wheel transplanter.
Yeah.
And that's the one that puts a little deposit of liquid with some fertilizer in each hole when you transplant.
Yeah.
Wow.
And really, so that only becomes useful if you can plant an entire bed of something.
Got it.
And the beds have to be a certain size for the mulch layer to really work. So that means we have to sell more. So selling more at a lower price per stem does make sense.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah. What is that bed size that you said it has to be perfect to fit that mulch layer?
You mean the length?
I guess is it the length or the width of
It's
each
just
row?
that if it's too short of a row, our rows are about 150 to 200 feet long.
Okay.
And if they're too much shorter than that, you just have to turn the tractor around so much that it
just
and you have
slows
to
you down.
end every bed, which means you cut the drip tape, and so it's not efficient if you're only growing tiny bits of different things.
Sure, like someone on a half acre couldn't do that.
It just wouldn't really make sense.
Wow, that's interesting. I also really appreciated the way you explained that. Well, I don't want to assume this, but Green Mountain will pretty much, if you've got the quantities and your stuff is beautiful and fresh and professionally grown, they'll take it. They'll say yes to what you tell them you have available, or are there certain things that you just don't even offer them? Or is that a trick question?
I think for the most part, so when we first started, this might be helpful. I would drive the van up. Nothing was pre-ordered,
Okay.
and Tom would buy most of everything that was on the van, not everything.
But he kind of just come shop the van.
Right, and so it was a lot on speculation.
Okay.
And I think that got harder for us because we didn't want, when we started having more, we weren't harvesting everything in our field. So we wanted to know what to harvest that would for sure be sold. We didn't
Sure.
want to waste any time harvesting something that wasn't sold at a
good
certain point. And then he also didn't want to buy as much on speculation because he didn't want to waste it not being sold. So over time, we're talking 6 years, now the whole van's sold. And
Because
that works better for him
Yeah.
because he's not having a loss and I'm knowing exactly what to harvest. But that took a long time to get there.
yeah,
So
and
I hope
that was
answers your
that was like
question.
sending him the availability lists and quantities and
Mhm.
giving him a couple weeks lead time to know what you have coming or
Yeah, I mean at this point we kind of, because it's been so long, he kind of knows, like we know what's in season.
yeah.
And that goes back to also me communicating with the people who are buying from him and giving them an projected availability so that when they're talking to their couples, they're designing weddings that are using flowers that will actually be in season.
That they know they can buy.
It's like a domino.
Oh my goodness. Okay. I think I followed that. And thanks for that explanation. And I just think it's a beautiful model. I would wish this for anyone to find that kind of wholesaler that they could reliably just have this like well-oiled machine of bringing crops to sale. And I suppose knowing he knows what he sold the first part of April last year, so he's expecting that you're going to have that again, kind of month after month or week after week.
And he doesn't buy everything we produce, and that's why we also do grocery stores.
Yeah, and the grocery seems to be this sort of wonderful vehicle for using overproduced crops that you have overproduction on, or stems that aren't right for wholesale. And I don't want to go further than that. I want to have you explain it, but
Yeah,
you
it's
said-
really just whatever's not ordered.
Really?
So there isn't really any quality issues or anything. It's more just like,
Oh, I
you
see.
know, whatever. It's our flex.
Yeah.
So I think when you're doing anything that there are orders, then you also have to have a portion of your business that's flexible.
That can absorb those
Right.
non-orders, yeah. And from that, you can make a recipe for your grocery bouquets. And are they all standard one roughly predictable size, or
Yeah.
okay? And how do you count that, by stem or?
Yeah,
or
it's stem
the
and
sleeve
size. A combination of stem and hand feel, we call it.
Yeah,
And that is like, so I think anybody who's a flower farmer out there will know that making mixed bunches is very, very difficult to make profitable because it takes so much time. And there have to be other factors, like it happens to fit into our business that we're able to use, you know, we're able to grow at a more profitable scale, so then we're able to sell those things. And the grocery stores, we're lucky, the co-ops we work with, they have standing orders, so that's a very dependable part of our business. We know that we're going to move those flowers every week.
yeah.
And the other component is that our employees really love making mixed bunches. It's an air-conditioned space, they get to handle the flowers, it's a creative thing, so in some ways that does add profitability.
Yeah.
In a
Quality
in
of
a way.
of
farmer
work life.
Yeah.
And also just kind of the mix of all the time out in the summer in the hot fields or high tunnels, the break occurs and maybe people are happy to make those bouquets.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It makes them very happy.
How many bouquets are you roughly producing to deliver to grocery a week, or is that a metric you would use?
Yeah, it's about, at this point, it's 2 separate days. We deliver once up north here to the Burlington area and once down south. And so we have about 50 bouquets that are flower share bouquets, so that's not very huge. And then about 100 the other, like each direction.
Got it. Yeah. So about 250 a week, or
Yeah.
yeah.
That.
I jotted down some numbers when you were talking about crop size and scale. Just was impressive. 6,000 Lysianthus planned for this year, and those are. Do you start those with plugs or from seed?
I do both.
Really,
Yeah.
just to diversify and.
Yeah, there are some that I can't get from plugs or that they're just like atrociously expensive. So I start those from seed and then buy other plugs.
That's great.
Yeah.
A half acre of dahlias, and I think I wrote down about 7,600 dahlias. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds about right.
Wow.
I had to look up that number to include it in the slideshow.
It's not a test.
Yeah.
5,000 ranunculus and 30,000 tulips.
Yeah, and
That
it'll
is
even be more next year.
I'll say, yeah. Oh my goodness, I love it. What are those your main kind of premium flower crops, and then lots of textures and annuals that kind of complement those.
Yeah, I would say the mums.
Oh, the mums
are also a really big crop for us, and
how does that work?
eucalyptus is also really big in the fall.
Okay, so the mums follow the dahlias, right? And roughly in terms of harvest time.
Yeah, yes, they kind of go at the same time.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
that's cool, and there's so much demand for that with fall weddings in Vermont. I'm sure.
Yeah,
people love that.
Yeah, they're very. I will say they're very, very cheap wholesale. So.
Interesting.
We don't sell a lot wholesale.
Okay.
Through Green Mountain at this point.
Yeah.
That's always, he's always open to change that, but they're very, very inexpensive. Wholesale.
That's interesting. And are the ones that are coming in, are they coming in from Canada or South America?
Good question. I know I should ask him that.
Yeah.
They're very standard, right?
Yeah.
So the ones we grow, we've got like spider mums and
heirloom mums.
Yeah, they're fancier, they're different, but it's still hard to justify when the price is like double for the same flower.
You'll get there.
Yeah,
because I think
it takes time.
The florist may determine that too.
But we have no problem selling them in other outlets.
Great.
There's demand. Yeah.
Yeah, and you said eucalyptus. That is sort of one of your main foliage crops.
Yeah, in the fall we sell a ton of it.
Wow. I wanted to wrap up a little bit with your description of this organization you're working with called Farm First. I think it's really a beautiful resource, and you described it yesterday as being a peer advisor with Farm First. Can you talk a little bit about? Am I describing that correctly? Or
okay, so Farm First is. I believe it's actually a national program.
Oh, okay,
but it's
great.
a program that Vermont has had for many years and wasn't being fully utilized. So these two women decided to start a peer program where they train farmers to basically we learn to be good listeners and also to be aware of signs where somebody might need to see somebody more professional and also suicide prevention training.
Wow.
So they actually paid us to do that training. And so if you're somebody who's interested in talking with another farmer, you can get on the Farm First website and click on the peer support network. And then it tells you it has farmers all over Vermont and their bio. So you can choose who you'd like to speak to.
Wow.
And so, it's a pilot project, so we're only the second cohort that was trained to do it. But I think it's brilliant because people want to talk to somebody that they feel like they have something in common with, and who better knows the struggles of farming than another farmer. So I'm feeling hopeful about it. It's still getting off the ground, so we'll see what happens.
Oh, I feel like it just, just the willingness of people to talk about mental wellness and mental health in general and in the mainstream culture seems to be happening, but there are certain professions that have kind of been neglected and kind of seen as like, well, aren't you a happy farmer, and maybe,
or a tough farmer.
Yeah.
There's this grit. You've got grit, like you don't let things get you down, or there's a lot of. And there's just inherently a lot of struggle, a lot of unknown, a lot of curveballs in farming.
Yeah,
so.
I really appreciate that. I think that's a great organization. I'll try to get the link and share that as well. Well, thanks for sharing about that. I do think that it'd be great if it is a national resource, so I'll try to pull that link for people. Kind of an invisible service that people who maybe would never call a therapist might go this route because it seems more accessible and maybe safer.
Mhm.
Thanks for doing that.
Yeah.
I love it. What else do you have on tap for 2023 that you're excited about? Will you be doing any on-farm events or workshops, or is your plate as full as you want it to be?
That's a good question. Gregory and I are both feeling really excited just about this idea of being a team. And just, we have an employee who was with us over the winter and was with us last season, and so we're excited to have him again, and some other people on board, and just to have some intention around what we all value and personal goals we have that aren't even farm related, and just really help support each other.
Oh, that's wonderful. One last question. I didn't ask you, where did the name Understory Farm come from? Because it is an adorable name.
Yeah, we went through a lot of different options. As a family, we spent months just like throwing things out there.
How old is your daughter?
She is now 14.
Was she involved in this decision?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. But she was much younger then.
Yeah, she actually came up with our tagline.
Which is?
Give a bunch of love.
Oh, that's so sweet.
But
I love it.
At one point, I saw her reading a book that she brought from school to a horse, and the horse was like reaching his head over the stall and it looked like he was looking at the book, and for some reason Understory came to mind. And we actually can't remember who came up with it. But
there was a story and the child was under the storybook or whatever.
Yeah, under the horse.
Yeah.
And then we were like, well, we're raising pigs. At the time we were raising pigs on pastures for like Understory. So not a, but we loved it. We loved we love stories.
Yeah.
Like as a family, they're so important to us. So we loved having
I love it.
in the name.
You talk about Understory in terms of like the forest understory. You know, there's sort of that's where all the nutritional, rich earth is. So I think that's what came to mind when I heard it. Mm-hmm. But I like the story part. Well, this has been so much fun, Jessie. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I really love spending time with you, and thank you for sharing your story with us. Mm-hmm. And we're going to, Jessie has a couple cool maybe drone photos she's going to share, and some other images from the farm that we'll share in our show notes at slowflowerspodcast.com when this airs as the podcast. And I hope to come out and visit next time instead of making you come to my Airbnb. So thanks so much.
Welcome.
Okay.
Thanks so much for joining us today. You can find the replay video of today's interview at slowflowerspodcast.com for episode 606, and see more photos of Understory Farm and find links to some of the resources that Jessie and I discussed. I want to thank our supporters who bring this show to you. This show is brought to you by slowflowers.com, the free online directory to more than 850 florist shops and studios who design with local, seasonal, and sustainable flowers, and to the farms that grow those blooms. It's the conscious choice for buying and sending flowers. Thank you to our lead sponsor, Farm Girl Flowers. Farm Girl Flowers delivers iconic burlap wrap bouquets and lush, abundant arrangements to customers across the U.S., supporting U.S. flower farms by purchasing more than $10 million of U.S.-grown fresh and seasonal flowers and foliage annually. Discover more at farmgirlflowers.com. Thank you to Mayesh Wholesale Florist. Family owned since 1978, Mayesh is the premier wedding and event supplier in the U.S., and we're thrilled to partner with Mayesh to promote local and domestic flowers, which they source from farms, large and small, around the U.S. Learn more at mayesh.com. Thank you to the Gardener's Workshop, which offers a full curriculum of online education for flower farmers and farmer-florists. Online education is more important than ever, and you'll want to check out the course offerings at thegardenersworkshop.com. And thank you to Details Flowers Software, a platform specifically designed to help florists and designers do more and earn more. With an elegant and easy-to-use system, Details improves profitability, productivity, and organization for floral businesses of all shapes and sizes. You can grow your bottom line through professional proposals and confident pricing with their all-in-one platform. All friends of the Slow Flowers Show will receive a 7-day free trial of Details Flowers software. Learn more at detailsflowers.com. The Slow Flower Show is a member-supported endeavor, and I value our loyal members and supporters. If you're new to our weekly show or our long-running podcast, check out all of our resources at slowflowerssociety.com. I'm Deborah Prinzing, host and producer of The Slow Flowers Show and the Slow Flowers podcast. Next week, you're invited to join me in putting more slow flowers on the table, one stem, one vase at a time. The content and opinions expressed here are either mine alone or those of my guests alone, independent of any podcast sponsor or other person, company, or organization. Thanks so much for joining me today.